Hello everybody, Mannix here. Going to be doing a quick overview of the Spyderco compression lock, one of my favorite locking mechanisms ever. Essentially, it's a liner lock. It is using the steel liner instead of being down here though, where the blade normally would recess itself. It's on the spine of the handle. So it works almost exactly the same as a liner lock. Here's the Spyderco Resilience, just another cast member in the stable right here, just to showcase you how that works. If I just showed you this, they look almost like the same thing. They're very similar. They operate the same, but instead of, again, being in the portion where the blade recesses itself, it's on the spine of the handle. Now, that alone isn't really an advantage other than the fact that you can disengage the blade this way, just like the Benchmade Axis lock or the SOG Arc lock, Cold Steel Ultra lock back in the day, Spyderco Cage Ball Bearing lock. That's really cool. It's an advantage and all, but it's a hell of a lot stronger than the liner lock for one simple reason, and that's because the liner pinches itself in between the top of the tang of the blade as well as the bottom of this big ol' stop pin we have right here. It gets sandwiched in between the two rather than the typical liner lock. The liner lock would stop the negative force, that's force going on the spine of the blade, and the separate stop pin stops the positive force, that's force going on the edge of the blade. But instead of two separate mechanisms doing two separate things, both the mechanisms are working together to do both. So, if you put negative force on the blade, it would get transferred to the liner right here, which, as you can see, is pinching itself, resting itself, I should say, on top of the tang of the blade. So that's where the force would go, and then that gets transferred to the stop pin. If we put pressure on the cutting edge, that would be positive force. That would get also transferred to the stop pin. Similar to the Cold Steel Triad lock in a sense. No, it's a completely different locking mechanism, functions completely differently, but the stop pin works with the locking mechanism itself. And so not only it is a very simple, nimble locking mechanism, it's very, very strong. Not really the mechanism itself, but because it works with the tempered stop pin, as you can see right there, which is fat, by the way. It is a fat stop pin right there. Very, very strong. And again, very nimble too. It doesn't have as much pressure on the knife like a lockback style knife would. So it's nimble and it's fast. It's very easy to deploy the blade while being super damn strong as well. And then on top of that, you can do this. Yay, isn't that fun? You know, deploying the knife without touching the blade at all and closing it without touching it. That's really fun. The cool fidget factor is there, but functionally speaking, it absolutely kicks ass. It's much stronger than a typical liner lock. The only disadvantage I can think of is you could argue it could slip. If your thumb's right here, your thumb could accidentally disengage this in a very stressful situation and cause it to close on your fingers if you spine whacked it accidentally while accidentally disengaging it. Pretty rare that would happen, but technically speaking, because it's right where your thumb is, you could argue you could accidentally disengage that. However, because it's so close to this area right here, it makes it very easy to pop open real quick, do a quick task, then close it because it's all right here. I like to use my index finger to open and close it if I do. I usually use my thumb to open the blade up, and then I use my index finger to close it. But you can also use your thumb and close it this way. But generally speaking, you're going to use your index finger. There is a cutout right here for that. I think these are way better than liner locks. Way, way stronger. And then, of course, because your hand's not in the position where the blade would recess itself, you can open and close it without touching the blade. A liner lock, technically you could do that, but it would hit your thumb when you're trying to close it. That's why that doesn't work for a liner lock. So amazing A+ locking mechanism right here, the compression lock by Spyderco. Very innovative, very strong, very simple too. It's not like it costs a bunch of money to make these things. It's literally just a cutout in the liner, just like a liner lock. They're just putting it up here instead of down here. So naturally, it's just going to fit itself in between the tang and the stop pin rather than being its own separate mechanism down here. Liner locks are okay. I don't mind them. They're fast. They're very simple, very easy to manufacture. It's literally just a cutout in the liner, and then you just push it forward like that, and boom, you got a locking mechanism right there when you time it with the stop pin. But that being said, they're kind of weak. Now, if you were to shock test this, if you were to spine whack these guys, I've seen people do it in videos. They have gotten these Spyderco Resiliences. Yes, this big old beefy knife to disengage that way. That being said, are you going to be spine whacking your blade Probably not under normal, even hard use. But that being said, emergencies, accidents happen, you know. So you get my point. The compression lock kicks ass. It's a great freaking locking mechanism.